Hello. In this tutorial, I will walk you through the process of how a user might create a simple smart tree from scratch, how the user can manipulate the tree, make some changes, move things around, apply logic conditions, and how one might import snippets of other trees to build your tree. And so that's all done basically through this window right here. This is the work area of building smart trees. And there's a number of ways to add what are called elements to the tree. The most common is to use this simple drop-down option right here. So these are the most commonly used elements. You can actually import documents as well, but we'll get to that later. But first, let's just talk about creating simple elements in your tree. So the most common one is a header. And a header doesn't really contain any content bar its title. And it's used to really organize your tree hierarchy. The next most common is a text, a piece of text. So it has an auto name right here. So here's some text. You can enter some text in here. I might put in my name, John. And when you once you click on any other item in the tree, that information is saved to the element that you're working on. So let's add some more information. Here you can click on this and say I would like to add a value, and I may want to add a date, for instance. I'll just add a date, and maybe a selection, a drop-down selection, and finally maybe a table. We'll just add a table. So these are some simple elements. You can drag them around, organize them any way you like. You can drag a lot of elements, you can drag multiple elements, and just shift them any way you like. To enter values into those, you simply enter a value. So for instance, we might enter a value of 0.5, for instance, in there. A selection list. Right now this selection list is empty, but if I want to add items to the tree in that selection, I can just add them right here. Item 1, item 2, item 3. So by clicking away, it automatically then saves those items, and it by default picks the first one. Here's a table, so we can enter some information in a table. I can just say A, B, C, 1, 2, 3. So here's a nice simple table, and you can also enter the column A, etc., C, B, and you can enter information here as well. So once you click away, the information is then saved. And so this is a very, very simple tree. So what makes a smart tree smart is that you can also assign logic to these elements. So what do I mean by logic? So let's look at a value. So right now this value is 0.5, and over here there's a range. And so what you can do is you can specify your own range. So maybe we'll make this a range, a value between, say, 0 and 1. So that is the range. And the value right now is 0.5. So I can actually click on this, and if you see up here in the top right, there's a little thing here. It says assign logic, and what it does is now the font changes to be in italic, which means there is a condition applied to this value. So how do you violate this condition? Well, in this case, the violation would be if this value was outside that range. So if I made that value 2, for instance, you'll now see that that value condition is not met, and it will flag the entire tree saying something in this hierarchy is not meeting a condition. In this case, this value is above a range you've set. If you want to revert and fix that problem, you can then change that number to be within that range, and you're good to go. You can also right-click a lot of these items and change the format, change the precision, and whatnot as well. The same is true for a selection list. We might want to assign some logic here. So once again, you can right-click and apply logic, or you can just hit the logic button over here, and you'll see that it italicizes the object. Now in this instance, it's flagging it because we have not yet selected what item we want to be the correct item. So if I click on this, right-click, and say assign logic, and then click away, you'll find that item 1 is the item that you have selected, and item 1 down here is the logic condition. So if I violate that logic condition, it will let me know as well. So that's an example using a selection. The same is true for some text. You can have the text either match the text that you have in here, or you could have it blank, and if it's blank, it would also say that that condition is not met. So for instance, in here, if I make this blank and I assign logic to that particular object, it's now saying that some text and in this case I picked everything. It's now applying logic to all of these conditions, but it's saying some text is violated because I don't have text in here. So if I put in text in there, it's now working again. So you can apply logic conditions to in a stack of information, or you can apply it to individual items as well. So very powerful feature in order to populate data and to assign conditions to the data. The last thing you can do in here is you can actually lock objects. So I can click on these objects right here and I can hit lock. And what that does is it locks them and it prevents me from changing them. Other common features in here as well, if you right click anything, you can copy, you can paste, you can move things around, as I said before. You can lock and unlock certain blocks. So I can copy this item here, maybe paste it down here. Paste all means it's going to paste everything. So you can move things around and paste and copy and whatnot. I can grab all of this information right here and I could paste it below it essentially. If you find you make mistakes, you can click on the SMARTree tab and you can undo the operations you did, and you can track that all the way back to when you first started building your tree. You can redo it as well if you find you're doing things correct. The clear button wipes it clear, and these up and down buttons basically shown here and here allow you to move things around. So you can click on objects like so, you can move them in or out as needed. You can actually grab blocks of items and move them up or down as needed as well. So very powerful. Little jog window here allows you to do a lot of actions essentially to your tree. So now that you've made your tree and you're happy with its organization and hierarchy and all the logic conditions you may or may not have assigned, you then have to save your tree. So the saving process is pretty straightforward. You just simply hit save and you decide where you'd like to have it. And so in this case I might want to put it under some repositories that I already have, some folders. So in this case I am in my templates folder, so let's go in here and I will save this as a simple tree, my first tree, SMARTree, and then hit that. So what happens then is it looks at that tree and it adds it to the stack, which is shown over here. So if I click on the libraries button, you will actually see that there is a new file called my first SMARTree, and it's outside of my tracking. What that means is, since I'm using Git as the backbone to all of this, Git is keeping an eye on what's new in your list of information. So this is I will walk through another tutorial where I talk about how we can update and commit this new information to the cloud or to your Git repository. But in this video I just wanted to show you the basics of tree manipulation and tree creation. And one last piece before we go is that you can actually drag information from other trees in here as well. So here's another tree. I can drag this tree in here. I could drag pieces of this tree in here as well, just to show you that besides creating information from scratch, you can actually bring other bits of trees in here as well. And so and I can pull from any of my other trees. There's a wide variety of trees that are available, and you can pull any of those different trees or pieces of those trees into the tree you're working on as well. And that's basically how it works. And you can actually drag an entire content in there as well from a tree, or you can bring pieces of those trees. So that is the tree creation process and how one would manipulate the tree and save the tree. And the next video I will go into the process of how this information can be updated and committed to your repository and also to the cloud. Thank you.